What I've been doing is I use what's called a sugar board or a candy board, and you guys that are handy, you can make these. My husband's really handy, but he's always farming when I need these, so I just buy them from wherever. Baston's typically is where I go. But it's just hardware cloth down in here, and then it's stapled on the inside, and you can see there's a hole right here. And that is to allow the bees to come up from the brood chamber, or if you leave a honey super on through the winter, which I do, I leave a medium honey super on top of 2 brood boxes, 2 deeps, or now I'm kind of going to a deep, 2 mediums, and a honey super to get them through the winter, because my bees are out in the middle of the woods with no cover really, as far as the wind goes. So I always put these on to help give them extra food. I don't have to worry about whether they've got food through the winter. And also I use this to absorb moisture from the inner cover, the top cover. When they get too hot and it's too cold outside, they create all that moisture, it drips down on the bees, and then it kills the bees. And I think I lost, the very first year I started, I think I lost one of my hives that way. I didn't know any better. I was still learning. So I make these up, and the first thing I do is you can either use newspaper.
So you can stand out and still depending on it.
No, because I got to do it in the bucket. Right. So no, we're fine. So you can either use newspaper or you can use tissue paper. Tissue paper some people like better because they feel like the bees can eat through that tissue paper better than they can eat through the newspaper. It's not quite as thick. And so I just lay that tissue paper down in there, and you can cut it a little bit bigger if you like, just so it doesn't if you think it's going to fall out. And once it gets dry, it's fine. It's not really going to fall out too much. So I brought my dust buster just in case I make a mess. I can scoop it up afterwards. So you take a 10-pound bag of sugar, and here I made directions, so anybody that wants directions, you can take a sheet of directions.
That figures a woman's always going to tell you where to go.
It's a teacher in me, because I know kids don't know how to take notes. Not from the person who always takes notes at these meetings. Okay, so you take a 10-pound bag of sugar, and you pour it into your bucket. This used to be one of my honey buckets, but I designated it to be my sugar board bucket, just because I was just worried about some of the essential oils that I use. I just wanted to make sure that even though you can wash it and all that they didn't stay in there and add, an extra flavor to it. So to that 10 pounds of sugar, you add 6 ounces of water, and then you use a teaspoon, not a teaspoon, 1 to 2 drops of lemongrass essential oil, 1 to 2 drops of spearmint essential oil. You can add 1 to 2 drops of thyme oil if you want, and then 1 drop of wintergreen or tea tree to it. And that's sort of like, you've probably seen that Honey Bee Healthy stuff they advertise to put into your syrup. It's pretty much kind of the same thing. I don't use the lecithin granules in it because you have to do the lecithin granules.
See if you can say it twice.
What's it called? That's the student in me.
Yeah. So I just pour that in, and then I bought a paint paddle at Lowe's and put it into the drill. And my husband, he thinks that maybe the chuck on his drill is getting a little worn out because we do this every year, but we're going to try this. And so then you just mix it up with your paint paddle. And you want to mix it feels a lot like, not real wet sand, but really moist sand. And you'll be able to tell because you won't have any more big clumps of sugar and water. So just keep stirring it up, working it around. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, there's no perfect to it. Just kind of look and see what you think. Lay it on there so it doesn't get all over there.
Who wants to lick the beers?
Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
I'll let you do that.
It's pretty sweet. Now, I'm gonna use my gloves just because it gets really messy. It gets all over your hands. So I put on my rubber gloves.
On the tissue paper, is that what you use? Is tissue paper?
I use either tissue paper or I use newspaper. I use whatever I have.
Okay,
It doesn't
so-
matter. One of the ladies, the lady that owns the High Butler Company,
Yeah.
Tracy Pylemeyer, she was the one who suggested tissue paper just because you can buy it really cheap if you don't get the newspaper. You can buy it really cheap at Dollar General. Or, you know, Christmas, you get all that crunched up tissue paper, just save it, smooth it out.
Would you use nothing but white paper?
I personally wouldn't, but I don't know.
That's my thing too. I wouldn't put anything else
Yeah.
in there that's.
So I try not to use newspaper that has colored pictures on it either. And anymore, it seems like it's, for some reason, I thought colored pictures were more expensive in newspaper. But it seems like anymore, all of the farm newspapers that my husband gets, they've got all colored pictures in them. And I was just,
Well, it's a-
I thought they all changed to soy ink anyway.
Well, it
Even
could
though-
be.
Yeah.
and that's probably why in the farm magazines they're using it, is because it's soy ink. So then you just pour it in.
All 10 pounds?
Yep, all 10 pounds.
This is per hive.
Per hive. You get one box, 10 pounds per hive. That's why your 25 pounds or whatever you got tonight, perfect timing. Now, you remember up in the top, there was that hole. So you want to kind of remember that's there and leave that space. And then you just start pressing it in. And you want to make sure that you kind of keep it below the edges of your frame on the outside. And you just keep pressing it down and pressing it down. It doesn't take hardly any time at all to do it. I usually put all 6 of my frames downstairs in my basement on the floor. I put it on top of an old shower curtain that I've kept. I just lay the shower curtain out, put all 6 frames out, and I do them all at the same time. House smells really good. Because you get that lemongrass and spearmint coming in. And then you just press it down and
You need the inner cover on top of that, right?
now see, I don't.
So
I
you
don't
leave your
put,
inner cover off.
once I decide to put these on, and I probably won't put these on until December, just depending upon the weather. Because I've been using in-hive feeders, and I fed them 2 weeks ago, and everybody kept saying, oh, my bees are going through a gallon of sugar water, you know, in a week. Mine still had a lot left. Some I hardly had to fill up at all. So I don't know what they're doing, but they were not happy the other day when I was down there. So I just leave that paper there at that opening, and then just to let this sugar get really, really dry. So you leave it sit. You can cover the top of it with newspaper if you want to while you're letting it dry, or you can just leave it sit out. I just leave mine sitting out all the time. And so, get these out.
Put your dustbuster on.
I know, I'm making a mess, aren't I?
I'm just over here.
I'll clean it up. I got some over here. That's why I brought it. So then, this is one of mine that I have done.
Is that how you store them in a bag?
Usually I don't. I just leave them sitting on the floor in the basement.
Oh.
And you've never had mice get into them?
We have a pretty good cat. She's an in-out cat.
Yeah, we used to do.
So see, that's how they end up. You'll have a little bit that kind of crinkles off, but, I mean, they're solid.
And where do you put this at, in the hive?
I put on top of my top box, whether that's your deep, your second deep, or whether it is your honey super on top of your deep. I like to leave a lot of extra food for my bees. Because sometimes
You
some of
don't
my
put the lid on
hives,
top. You say you don't put the lid on. After you
I
have
don't put the inner cover on.
Oh, the inner cover, okay.
I put the,
You put the lid.
I put the top cover on, of course,
Okay.
but I don't put the inner cover on because sometimes I get a lot of moisture on the inside of my inner cover, and that moisture will drop down onto the sugar. The sugar will absorb that moisture, and then it won't get on your bees.
So you put it in like after the first frost and then take it off in the,
I usually don't take mine off until March.
Is there any left in March?
Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. It just depends on the bees. Another thing that I did last year, because I had extra sugar, I took the little mini aluminum pie pans and I just mixed up like 5 pounds of this. I just cut the recipe in half and made 5 pounds. And I filled up a bunch of those little mini pie pan and let them dry. Popped them out of those aluminums, and then when I went down to my bee yard on a nice warm day, I could pop the lid. If they were out, I could just pop those little mini pies in there to give them more food. And so that kind of helped get them, going again until we actually started getting some trees blooming and things like that in the spring.
Did you
So,
put all those essential oils in, or just one?
put all of them in.
Okay.
1 to 2 teaspoons of, or I keep saying teaspoons. The reason why I'm saying teaspoons is because I also have a recipe, I have 2 recipes for the honeybee healthy. Like you can buy at most of your bee equipment stores, but you can make it at home. And I have a couple of those different recipes that I can type off and bring next meeting if you want. Because that makes like quart sizes.
we're sending out an email.
Yeah, I can do that too.
This recipe.
Yeah, right there.
Oh. I didn't see that.
If I need to make more of it, I'll send out an email too. So anyway, do you have any other questions?
So when you put your outer cover on,
Uh-huh.
do you leave it propped up any at all?
Well, most of these. as you
I
can
see that it has a hole drilled in it.
Yeah,
That's-
this has a hole drilled in it, which it is still, you're gonna make sure your top cover is shoved forward so that that hole there is not up against the edge of your top cover. And so that lets some moisture in, or, sorry, some ventilation through there.
Since you're not using the inner cover with a notch.
Out of that hole that's in there, and then that just gives them that entrance a little easier to go ahead and get in.
So
Versus-
is that 1/4 inch hardwood cloth or is that a little bigger?
Half.
I think it's half.